So I once had a teacher who tried to paint a picture of what surrender is, because it is a confusing word somehow. And he said, he told a story about the soldiers of Napoleon that were going to conquer Russia. They were marching for Moscow or something like this. And then they burnt the bridges behind them. So it was not, they were not like, we surrender, we give up, because in war movies you see people surrender and they take the white flag, But he was talking about burning the bridges behind them. So they were marching on, burning the bridges behind them. Like there's no return. Like we have, we only have to go forward. So it's like a kind of a braveness to it.
Yes,
somehow.
And at some point, you've done it so much to understand it's the opposite. Because once you begin to realize for real that whatever I experience within myself is illusion, and you get this yearning for reality, for truth, for God, whatever you want to call it, you can't stay. You have to move. Because whatever you hold on to, it's corrupt by the time you're able to experience it. So you want to be in this kind of fluid state where you don't hold on to anything to start with. You let go of your own version of life. And yes, as I say, like, if you can hold on to it, let go of it. But the challenge is that you can only let go of something you're holding. So you have to hold it first, because otherwise it's not a choice. Otherwise it's not challenging. And many people, we've seen this in spiritual traditions, they pull away from the world. So they don't have anything, they don't engage in life. I've let go of everything. You haven't, because you haven't held it yet. And then you can think, I've let go. No, you have not been tested. It's only when you first have established attachment and you then let go. That's letting go. It's not staying away from it, but engaging fully until you reach a state where you can be deeply involved with absolutely everything and anything in life, and nothing sticks because you're not holding on to anything. So surrendering detachment means that you're engaged in life even more. Not that you've pulled away from it, because that's fear. It means that you're afraid of your own attachment, which means you're not letting go. You're under the illusion that you have, but you haven't even started. This is what I've seen so many times with people who have been in spiritual traditions for decades, like really, deep spiritual work. And they've gone into that trap. And when they're placed in the real world, they can't handle it because they're not used to having to deal with things. So we have to be present in the real world. We have to be able to be in the midst of everything without attachment. But without attachment means that we are engaging. We are fully present. We're not pulling back from anything because we see everything as divine expression.
This is kind of what we were talking about in our last episode on karma yoga. And it's also a part of Hindu tradition, especially for people who didn't go into the yogic path from birth, but live a normal life, so that you develop attachments. You have a family, you develop material wealth, and then you let go of it. So that's kind of part of the Hindu tradition.
Yes, but also again, the process of letting go does not mean that it goes away. Because the only thing you need to let go of is your own version, it's your attachment. When you think that whatever you're holding on to, that has to be removed from you, you're still in attachment. Because you need to create the illusion that you are detached by removing whatever you are attached to. So in true detachment, you don't have to remove anything because you are not attached.
The deeper you are.
Like all levels.
Mm.
When something is true spiritually, you're able to practice it on absolutely all levels, also here. And this is what I mean, you're able to engage deeply. Because you, in your consciousness, you do not attach. So as long as people focus on letting go, removing things, they're still in attachment. And this is also what people figure out, when they dedicate their lives to spiritual traditions. At some point they get it. They can let go of everything. Like, yes, they can have all wealth, and then they let go of that, and then they understand that they're still attached. Because when you have to give away your possessions, you are attached. Because it's not about the possessions, it's about your consciousness.
Is this even a choice to let go of things? Or do you have to let go whenever your psyche and your body is ready? Can you choose to let go?
This is a very interesting question because it's also evolution, right? Evolution only goes one way. But what one learns over time, when you're able to track your own spiritual evolution over your lifetimes, is that you start seeing movements and patterns, and you start to recognize what is actually working, what's not working, what's assisting me in my growth, and what's blocking me. And it can be different for different individuals. So we all get there. I always say that enlightenment is inevitable. But we can get there without suffering. But then we have to understand the nature of suffering and how we actively work against ourselves. So we can then learn how to be more productive. Instead of operating in karma and suffering, we can operate in the field of potential and growth and love. We're dealing with the same learning process, but without the attachments and without fighting. We will run towards truth instead of trying to fight it.
Do you have a more concrete example or advice for some sort of action, practice, something you can do to practice this type of surrender?
Jump off a cliff. Every day. Not
literally.
Well, you could do that if that's necessary, but for most people, that would not be productive. But I often say that to understand the feeling of surrender, it's imagine that you jump off a cliff. After 2 seconds, you get calm because there's no return. That's back to the burning the bridges. It's all done, it's over. All I can do now is to surrender it to it because there's nothing else to do. And it's that. And surrender is always choosing to go beyond our aversion. And one practice we can have in our daily lives is to all situations, every single situation we find ourselves in, we will be, the default setting is that we will see it from our own self-interest, from our own survival, our own consciousness. And somehow we believe that we are seeing it objectively and that we have the right.
Seeing what?
What is going on, okay. Our understanding and what's going on, what other people are doing, their intentions. When we understand, I'm just in my own version, it's not reality. We can ask ourselves, how does nature, how does life itself, how does God observe this? And how can I be an instrument for that? And it's not that God agrees with me, it's the opposite, right? It's trying to go beyond aversion and saying that when you have several people interacting, there are several different positions. And what if I let go of my position, myself, my self-interest, my own intention, and just experiment and what actually is this? Why did nature manifest this situation? What is the healing potential? What is the growth potential here beyond myself? And just try to listen and try to open yourself to that, working through the situation, and be more interested in what you don't know. What is beyond your own self-interest, because you already know that. you know very little about the other positions, right? So expansion of consciousness is trying to go beyond what you already know, what you already relate to, because when we do that, there, we don't grow. So there needs to be a surrender always in many different ways, because that is always going beyond what we assume, what we believe, what we think is right, all our bias, because it's there. It's in our brains, it's in our DNA. So practicing always trying to go beyond that and asking questions, and just because to me, spirituality is not serious. We should explore, we should have fun, and just like try to figure out what's going on, what is truth here, what is real. And so like the more we are in our own positions, the less truth we are connected to. Life is bigger. Truth is always far greater than our comprehension. We can open ourselves to it, so we can be in harmony with it. We can never understand it.
So it sounds like the way that you can open up to this truth is through a sort of like an exploratory mode, where you're just
absolutely
curious.
Yes, it's basically understand that your mind operates on a kind of circular logic, right? It has its structure and its definition, its beliefs and experience. And whatever you add to it, it will interpret it so it fits into the existing context. And this is why we need to question. So we basically create a little wiggle room and make our minds doubt itself. Right? For instance, I said that like rule of thumb number 1 is always self-observation. Always try to establish a point of observation beyond your own body. Try to imagine that you're basically 1 to 2 meters above yourself, a little bit, to the side. So you're basically observing yourself as a person, just like you observe the others. And just like look at it. And often when you start looking, and you I have no self-interest in this point. I'm just observing and, seeing what's going on. Your brain can start relating to a position of observation that is not connected to the survival of your own body and your self-interest, because in that point there's simply observation. You can learn to just relax in that. And when you learn just to be in that type of dual consciousness, that will fuck your mind up, because you will experience situations where when you are in that point of observation, you will come to one conclusion. When you're in your body, in your brain, you will have one conclusion. You'll say, oh, okay, there are different ways of looking at this. And that will create doubt. We need more doubt. We need to always relate to the fact that there is more. We don't understand anything. We don't have to trust anything. We should just explore and try to not kind of bring ourselves to conclusions too fast, because the moment we have brought ourselves to conclusion, our brain will start protecting and defending that conclusion. So part of spiritual growth is that we learn to not believe anything we think, anything we feel. We don't believe our history, because we know that's just our version, our definitions. So we will learn to always doubt everything, because there is more. I say, whatever I experience, I did not get the full picture. Because how could I? I'm operating from a singular point. Someone standing somewhere else will notice something else. So it's getting into the habit of always reminding ourselves that this is just one version. This is not the definitive version. And this is one out of trillions of versions. So am I right? Probably not. I don't have to be. Because it's not about who has got the right definitions. No one's got the right definition. It's not necessary. We need to explore and play and learn to be in harmony. And we can be in harmony without understanding everything about life. We can still observe how life is moving, and we can learn to move in harmony with it. And as we become more and more kind of in harmony, then that truth will start to enter us through us being in harmony, not because we understand things. So the farther you go along in your spiritual awakening, the less the focus is on understanding, because at some point you ever understood everything of importance in yourself. It's not that. It's only, am I in tune? Am I in alignment? Am I in a state of harmony that allows nature to take over? And you learn to focus on that. It's not an intellectual process. It's not a process in the self. It's a process that can only happen when you go beyond it.